Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahawashi, Bahasham, Barakahak Wadash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahawashi, double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who ruled and teach well, and peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure unto the end. This is the brother Ra'aya coming at you with another lesson, and I'll be profiling a little bit of this video from City Prepping's YouTube channel titled Companies Warn Massive Shortages in 4 to 6 weeks. And you know, it's a waiting game to see how things are going to look. I think a lot of people are saying around June 14th how these store shelves are going to be looking due to Trump's tariffs, because as we'll see in this clip, it's caused a lot of cancellations and disruptions, not just with these companies but even with farmers not being able to sell the crops and meat they usually would to countries like China. And they're even warning that things could make what happened with those store shelves with the C-19 during 2019 to 2021 look like a warm-up. But regardless of whether it gets as bad as they're speculating and continues, or things pull back a little bit, according to biblical prophecy, there will be empty store shelves, food shortages, and famines out here, which is going to cause people to, go at it with each other. Home invasions, fights at these stores, like what you saw with the C-19 with people fighting over toilet paper and bottled water, etc., etc. And this is all a part of biblical prophecy. We are quickly, coming into the times of Jacob's trouble, a time worse than any other point in human history. The great judgments of Yahweh Bahashem Yahawashi on you people, especially in the United States of America, for the great pride and wickedness you've been walking in. But this is a fair use copyright disclaimer. I do not own any of the footage in this clip, nor do I stand to gain from it monetarily. It is simply for educational purposes. And I'm going to start the video at the 3-minute and 28-second mark.
You need to know. Empty shelves. The shelves in your local store may still look full, but behind the scenes, something is breaking. A massive disruption is under...
And you've got people in certain parts of the country already showing that their store shelves are getting empty out here.
One that experts say could make the shortages of 2020 look like a warm-up act. In the last few weeks, the global trade system has been shaken by the largest tariff escalation in a generation. Shipments have stalled, inventories are being quietly drained, and purchases are already ticking up as Americans begin to realize what's coming. Now, the implications stretch from shipping ports to farmland to your neighborhood store. And while this crisis has not reached its peak yet, the countdown has already begun. To understand the current disruption, it helps to think in terms of 3 buckets. You have purchases, you have inventory, and then you have shipments. Now, purchases are accelerated right now and in the first quarter of this year. As news of the tariff spreads, more companies and retailers are beginning to stock up just in case. Early stage anticipatory buying is often the first sign of trouble, and it challenges the budget margins as companies they try to increase their inventories. Now, the second bucket is inventory, what's already on hand in the warehouses and on shelves. Many retailers, they saw this coming and they begin to stock up in this first quarter of the year. That gives us a brief cushion, but it's not a long-term fix. Inventories are already being drawn down, and for smaller businesses or companies already on thin margins, they couldn't afford to preload stock. Now, the situation for them is even more precarious. Now, the third bucket, which is shipments, is where the real alarm bells are going off. Shipments from China have already collapsed. JP Morgan estimates imports may drop by as much as 75 to 80% this year. Some shipments have been rerouted in transit, dropped off at a dock, then brought back or canceled outright. And data shows that bookings for shipments from China to the United States plunged 64% in early April. And these are not small delays, these are stoppages. The last of untariffed goods shipped before April 9th are trickling in the ports now, but what comes after that carries massive costs, if it comes at all. The April 9th tariff escalation marked a turning point. Overnight, the United States imposed a 145% tariff on Chinese imports, and China responded in kind. The fallout has been immediate. Orders for key U.S. agricultural exports, soybeans, pork, corn, were canceled mid-shipment. Cargo ships were rerouted in the middle of the Pacific. China has turned to Brazil, replacing nearly $1.1 billion in U.S. soybean contracts within just 72 hours. This is not just a pause in the sale of soybeans to China. That billion-dollar market is...
And I was watching a clip earlier that a brother posted about how Japan is threatening the U.S. with dumping, I think they have $1.13 trillion in U.S. bonds, which would, just make things much more expensive out here from, car loans, car payments, all these different things out here. And, it would just further, decrease the value of the U.S. dollar. So, hey, Donald Trump, when he enacted these tariffs, thought everybody was going to come bending backwards to the U.S. But as we're seeing, things didn't play out exactly as he expected them to, because the U.S. isn't that same bully on the block like it was, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. A lot of these nations are coming up to parity with the U.S. economically and militarily. And what this is ultimately all going to lead to is World War III, economic collapses, the implementation of the MARKOFTHEBEAST in Revelation 13 verses 16 to 18, which is the RFID/NFC micro C-hip implant, and America getting hit by nuclear missiles, being wiped off the face of the earth.
Gone and will likely never come back again, as China has found new suppliers. Now we have an incredible surplus of soybeans and no new markets to offload that surplus. Economists now believe that what we're witnessing is not just a trade dispute, it's a significant shift in global trade relationships. Think of it as abruptly shifting a car from fourth gear down to first gear. Here the economy is the engine, and what once flowed smoothly between two major trading partners is being reshaped by evolving policies, market responses, and infrastructure adjustments that could redefine trade patterns for years to come. Ports are projected to get a lot quieter or seeing the same volume of ships, but with far fewer containers on them. The Port of Los Angeles has projected that imports could drop by as much as a third in the coming weeks. Now, on the trucking side, companies are preparing for what they call a bloodbath due to the collapsing cargo volumes. West Coast trucking associations report widespread concern about a ripple effect that will travel from ports to warehouses to last mile delivery. Some firms are already backing out of long-term warehouse leases. Distribution networks that were once humming with activity are beginning to slow, and every empty cargo bay is a red flag for what's about to come. Major retailers are not sounding alarms in public just yet, but behind closed doors, they are preparing. Companies like Walmart, Target, and Amazon built up their inventories ahead of the tariff rollout, but that supply won't last. Retailers estimate that they have 5 to 7 weeks before the higher tariff products hit shelves, and some have warned that variety and availability may begin declining even sooner. Smaller stores with tighter budgets and less room to absorb cost increases may simply stop selling certain items altogether. And what's coming is not just price increases, it's a supply shortage.
Let's get some precepts. This is 2 Esdras chapter 6. I'm going to read verse 22. And suddenly shall the sown places appear unsown, the full storehouses, your Walmarts, Rouse's, Kroger's, Winn-Dixie, Publix, these different places you go to get, food, electronics, clothing, shall suddenly be found empty. So, supply shortages out here. And hey, again, it remains to be seen how extensive these coming shortages are going to be. But regardless, it's going to get to the point to where, these store shelves are going to take a major hit and it's never going to come back. And hey, that's when the real party starts. And as City Prepper just said, a bunch of retailers are warning that, higher price items we may not be able to buy anymore. Let me just repeat what he said.
Beginning to slow, and every empty cargo bay is a red flag for what's about to come. Major retailers are not sounding alarms in public just yet, but behind closed doors, they are preparing. Companies like Walmart, Target, and Amazon built up their inventories ahead of the tariff rollout, but that supply won't last. Retailers estimate that they have 5 to 7 weeks before the higher tariff products hit shelves, and some have warned that variety and availability may begin declining even sooner. Smaller stores with tighter budgets and less room to absorb cost increases may simply...
Smaller stores, tighter budgets, and less room to absorb costs. What does that sound like? Layoffs and businesses shutting down. And I did a video, last week showing how many major companies are already laying off hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of workers and closing up shop. Hey, the U.S. economy is in dire straits right now. This is Isaiah chapter 19. I'm going to start at verse 4. And as pursuant to Revelation 11, verse 8, the United States of America in the scriptures is known as spiritual Egypt, among a few other names in the scriptures, such as Babylon the Great. This is Isaiah 19 and 4. And the Egyptians, the spiritual Egyptians, these Americans, especially these Edomite Americans, will I give over into the hand of a cruel Lord, and a fierce king shall rule over them, saith the Lord, Yahweh of hosts. And with these tariffs and all these other actions that Donald Trump's been doing with this first couple of months in office, he's looking like he could very well be that cruel Lord and that fierce king set over you Egyptians, because a lot of you magatards drank the Kool-Aid thinking that these tariffs would bring the jobs back and bring the factories back, which that's going to take years in itself to build those factories and train those workers, and that these other nations, though they're feeling pain, would really go through it. But hey, these tariffs are really just a further tax on you U.S. citizens, because these companies shipping their goods here, the buyers here, the importers, are going to have to pay more to get those costs, because those exporters are going to have to raise the costs, and those companies aren't going to absorb it like that. They're going to pass it down to the average U.S. citizen. Verse 5, and the waters shall fail from the sea, and the rivers shall be wasted up and dried up, and they shall turn the rivers far away, and the brooks of defense shall be emptied and dried up, the reeds and the flags shall wither. And this can go into a few things, but if you look at U.S. rivers and lakes, and even some of these dams out here over the last decade or so, they've been drying up. So the rivers and lakes in the U.S. are literally drying up. And then you've got these adverse weather events across the country, further causing droughts and disruptions. Verse 7, the paper reeds by the brooks, by the mouth of the brooks, and everything sown by the brooks shall wither, be driven away, and be no more. The fishers also shall mourn, and all they that cast the angle into the brooks shall lament, and they that spread nets upon the waters shall languish. Moreover, they that work in fine flax, and they that weave networks shall be confounded. So hey, on the one hand, literal fishers are being affected by these rivers and lakes drying up. But then on the other hand, a fisherman is a worker, just as those that work in fine flax and weave networks are workers. So what? The average American business and employers out here, having a hard go at things due to dire economic situations. As City Prepper just said, smaller retailers really won't be able to absorb these costs, and have inventory shocks and stuff like that, which is going to lead to what? Businesses going out and businesses laying off workers. As it says in Ecclesiastes chapter 12, the doors shall be shut in the streets, because the sound of the grinding or working is low. And back in April, when these tariffs were first announced, you had a lot of small U.S. business owners saying, look, I will not be able to absorb these tariff costs, because there are just some things that I just can't get in the United States of America. And even if I go to a company that does make the item in the U.S., the materials they need to get it come from China. One guy even said that the money he would have to pay is in the millions of dollars to get those goods into the U.S. So vis-a-vis going out of business. Again, moreover, they that work and find flax and they that weave networks, these businesses out here shall be confounded, and they shall be broken in the purposes thereof. Businesses going out, people getting laid off, all that makes sluices and ponds for fish. Again, this can be talking about literal fishermen and those that work in that industry having a hard time, and what? Just workers and businessmen and business owners in general having a hard time due to the declining economic situation out here.
Stop selling certain items altogether. And what's coming is not just price increases, it's a supply shortage. And when inventory dries up and no new shipments are arriving, we enter familiar and dangerous territory: panic buying, hoarding, and stockouts. America's farmers are facing their own cliff. In a matter of days, China canceled over $2 billion in agricultural imports, including soybeans, pork, and corn. The United States Department of Agriculture has reported a 13% spike in unsold soybean inventory, with prices crashing more than 8% in a week. The American Soybean Association warns that farm incomes could drop by as much as 18% this quarter alone. And for farmers that operate with thin margins, this is going to be catastrophic. And this is not temporary. China has spent...
That's more biblical prophecy. These U.S. farmers out here suffering. Because what? As City Prepper just said, prices are going to drop, and they're already operating on thin margins, so they're not going to make their money. A lot of them are going to have to, lay off farm hands and, close down their farms. Then on top of that, a lot of these farmers had what? Illegal immigrants working for them on the cheap. And now that Trump's deporting them, that's just going to further rise their costs. And then with them not being able to sell those goods like that, they pretty much just cultivated them for nothing. And now they're just going to rot in those storehouses or in those fields. Back in 2nd Esdras 6 and 22. And suddenly shall the sown places, because a farmer sows seed in croplands, shall appear unsown. They don't have the demand, so they don't plant the crops. So what? There's less shipments out there, leading to the full storehouses becoming emptier and emptier. Then on top of that, you've had these adverse weather events, major droughts and major flooding, also ruining farmers' croplands out here. So as you can see, it's just a vicious circle of judgment taking place on the United States of America. But this is 2nd Esdras chapter 15 in the Apocrypha. I'm start at verse 10. Behold, my people, the children of Israel, who are known as the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans today, is led as a flock to the slaughter. I will not suffer them now to dwell in the land of Egypt, spiritual Egypt, the United States of America, but I will bring them with a mighty hand and a stretched out arm, and smite Egypt with plagues as before, and will destroy all the land thereof. And those that are going to be brought with a mighty hand and a stretched out arm are the elect of the nation of Israel. The 1/3 that are in America being saved from all these calamities. And as it says, the Lord will smite Egypt with plagues as before. Droughts, floodings, famines, economic woes, which is a plague, and will destroy all the land thereof. Ultimately, with those nuclear missiles hitting this place, Egypt shall mourn, and the foundation of it shall be smitten with the plague and punishment that the Most High shall bring upon it. Those that work in flax and weave linen, these workers out here, these businesses, shall be confounded. Verse 13, they that till the ground shall mourn. Who are those that till the ground? Farmers. And hey, these tariffs are definitely causing them to mourn out here. I've seen other clips where U.S. farmers said, I voted for you, Donald Trump, but what you're doing right now is ruining my livelihood. For their seeds shall fail through the blasting and hail, adverse weather events, and with the fearful constellation, all these other negative factors out here. because, a constellation, you can look at it as, people looking at the stars for answers. You can relate that to what? People look into these economic forecasts and news for answers, but what are they getting? Fearful constellations or fearful responses back. Tariffs, China and other countries not buying their goods, them having to lay off workers or shut up shop, etc., etc.
Spent years investing in Brazil's railways, ports, and grain terminals, laying the foundation to shift supply chains permanently. And by embedding itself in South America's agricultural infrastructure, China has eliminated its dependence on the United States' commodities and replaced it forever with something far more stable and aligned with its long-term strategy.
That's a fearful constellation for those that sow the ground. That China is looking to and building infrastructure to just become less reliant on the U.S. That's a lot of business leaving America.
Goals. Now, the result is a corporate environment paralyzed by uncertainty. And without a doubt, many businesses will feel compelled to pass costs on to consumers in order to survive and maintain profitability. Others are holding prices steady for now, but absorbing the hits to their inventory and balance sheets internally. Most are simply frozen, unsure what the next month will bring. Amazon CEO has said sellers will likely raise prices across the board. Earlier this week, an internal Amazon planning document, one of several, suggested displaying the tariff increases next to the product. And when news of this was leaked, it was labeled as a hostile and political act. Best Buy expects unprecedented price hikes in electronics. AutoZone and Target have warned that imported goods, including essential categories like groceries and tools, will become harder to keep on shelves. And in the background, economic indicators are starting to soften. Job cuts are rising, manufacturing output is...
This clip, but what did they say? Due to the tariffs, hey, it looks like we're going to have to rise prices. Hey, that tariff being a tax passed on to you Americans, which we know according to the scriptures, prices are going to rise. This is Revelation chapter 6. I'm going to start at verse 5. And this is dealing with the, so-called 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, which are just, symbolic for signs and things that would be taking place in the last days. And this is dealing with the black horse. And what does the header say? The third seal, famine. And when he had opened the third seal, I heard a third beast say, "Come and see." And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the 4 beasts say, "A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou hurt not the oil and the wine." And when we get that word penny in the Strongs, it's G1220 denarion, which reads a Roman silver coin in New Testament times. It was the principal silver coin of the Roman Empire, and the United States of America is also the Roman Empire reborn as well. So you can look at the denarion today as what? That US dollar, the principal currency for modern Rome. From the parable of the laborers in the vineyard, it would seem that a denarius was then the ordinary pay for a day's wages. And back in the ancient world, and especially according to our law in the scriptures, a man was paid the very same day he worked. It wasn't how it is today, where most people get paid what? Every 2 weeks or so, which is wicked as hell. So a measure of wheat for a penny and 3 measures of barley for a penny. Damn near your entire paycheck being used to buy even a less amount of goods. Due to what? Tariffs causing prices to rise, already economic dire situation and inflation lowering the value of the US dollar, etc., etc. But that's it with this clip. Go back to 2nd Esdras chapter 6. I reread verse 22 down to 23. And suddenly shall the sown places appear unsown, and the full storehouses shall suddenly be found empty. And the trumpet shall give a sound, which when every man heareth, they shall be suddenly afraid. And the trumpets are being blown right now. First and foremost, by the men of the Lord, going out onto the highways and byways preaching this word, as well as putting up video epistles like this, showing you what times you're looking in. And now it's starting to seep into the mainstream that dire economic situations are coming down the horizon, and people are starting to get nervous out here. And, as City Prepper said, there's going to be a panic buyings and shocks and stuff like that. And also that we could possibly see what happened during the C19 to 2019 to 2021, which, empty store shelves for months and a couple of years. And then what? The few goods that were remaining, you had people fighting each other to get their hands on the last bit of goods that they could. Like I've been saying throughout the video, it remains to be seen how extensive these shortages are going to be and if they're going to last. But regardless, it's going to get to a point to where it's going to be permanent, and people are going to get desperate out here and turn against each other. It's going to become a dog-eat-dog world. Verse 24, at that time shall friends fight one against another like enemies. And what's one of the main things that would cause that? Food shortages. Your stomach's touching your back and you're watching your family starve. And the earth shall stand in fear with those that dwell therein. The springs of the fountain shall stand still, and in 3 hours they shall not run. And it's going to go from people fighting each other for the last bit of goods at these stores to home invasions. Back in 2nd Ezra chapter 15, I'm going to jump down to verse 19. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, friends fighting one against another like enemies. And you're going to see good neighbors that had barbecues and went to each other's kids' sporting games fight against each other. Family members fight against each other. Best friends, etc., etc. But shall destroy their houses with the sword. And the modern day sword, especially in the United States of America, is that gun. But people are going to be using whatever they can get their hands on in that day. Literal swords, bats, chains, knives, Molotov cocktails, brass knuckles, and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread. The full storehouses suddenly being found empty, food shortages, and for great tribulation. All these other plagues that Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai is quickly bringing to Egypt, the United States of America. So that's it with this video. With this video, I hope you sincere Akim and Akwath were edified. Just keep strong. With each passing day, we are getting closer and closer to our salvation and the judgment of Esau, Edom, America, and these heathens. So that's it with this video. I'm going to say a Baba Ball, Kwam Yasharala, and until next time, Shalom.